I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, and what that kind of contributes to me going into professional wrestling later on, and we'll get into that. But I'm in the metropolis of Fayetteville, Tennessee, population 22,000. Now, I'll tell you what, I know it's hard for you in Toronto to keep up with us, but we're gonna we're gonna try. But yes, you can. I will actually give out my personal email because I do have listeners that call in or that write me. It is M as in Mark, B as in Brenda, J as in Jessica, A as in Ashley, A as in Austin, S as in Smith, mbjaas@gmail.com. You can also reach me through Facebook, IRA, Mark Smith. That's Ira Mark Smith. On Instagram, I am Mark Smith WCW. That stands for World Championship Wrestling. That's really when I hit the big time in pro wrestling. And our website is www.wrestlingwithdemonsmith, and that's with two S's, Demon Smith. Wrestlingwithdemonsmith.com. So between all that, if you're a stalker, you should be able to find me.
So, Mark, I guess my first question too is something, but actually, before I ask my first question, I want to share that title when you said wrestling with demons, and it brought me to a point where many of us we have demons that we are battling, either from the
Sure.
past, the present, and there's so many demons that are going to come up in our future, right? Because unfortunately, we live in a world where there's a lot of suffering and there's a lot of pain associated with that. So, for you, what are some of the struggles that you went through that you would identify maybe as your demons or how you were
Sure,
wrestling with it?
sure. Well, I feel like many of the demons I fought we see in society today. I mean, why would people take someone out of a vehicle and beat them to death for no reason? Why does that kind of stuff happen? Why do shootings happen? These school shootings. I'm just curious. In Canada, are you getting larger amounts of school shootings like we are here in the U.S.?
We are having an increase in violence when it comes to car thefts and breaking and entering is high here. But in Canada, we always look to our American friends when it came to the shooting because you guys average a shooting a day.
It's awful. It is awful. And so my demons, okay, being reared in a broken home, also a father, and my father was beaten with chains when he was a child. I mean, literal steel chains. He had never been able to process anything about it. So all of that pain, all of that aggression was passed over to the next generation, which was us. And not being able to process things, I feel like number one, that is probably the biggest demon that we have to face. And that is we don't admit that they're there. It's like an alcoholic. When I hear alcoholics speak, they say one of the freeing moments is them saying, "Hello, I'm Joe," or "I'm John, and I'm an alcoholic." They owe up to that. You cannot fight a problem. You cannot deal with a problem unless you recognize the problem is there. And, too many people live in the state of denial, and I'm not talking about the river. Okay. Okay, that was cheap humor. Okay. But the demons, when you're brought up in a broken home and things are not as solid or concrete, number one, your foundation is a little bit shaken. Who am I? That's an incredible demon. Think about the number of people. Well, if you remember, and I don't, you've got a couple gray hairs. You may remember with me, but the kid at that time, he's a grown up man now. That because of he says reading The Catcher in the Rye, he shot John Lennon. Why? He wanted an identity. Hey, I did this. I went down in history. You're unless you know who you are, you're very lost in this life. Likewise, at the same point, we are fed so much crap, whatever you want to call it, from everything from TV ads to celebrities endorsing this and that and everything else. We're young people are being told from every direction that this will make you somebody, or this will make you somebody, or this will make you somebody. You know what? I'm 57. I had to think about that. I'm 57. And I don't want to go back to being a teenager in today's time. But identity, your purpose, how to achieve it. What is really success? What is really happiness? Does that mean you just didn't get in a fight today? I mean, when you think about it, and all these, they're like little demons that you're fighting inside your soul. I think it'd drive anybody to being crazy. I mean, it would drive anybody to be crazy, really. It would drive me to be crazy. And so, just for us opening up, I think you talk about demons, those were demons that I dealt with. And I hope that kind of answers the question.
It does, it does. And there's a point where you mentioned success and happiness. And I just finished having a conversation with my friends maybe an hour ago about this. And I was
Wow.
telling her that is your happiness defined by what others can do for you, or is your happiness defined on what you can do for yourself? And she sat back and she was like, I was like, exactly. We are shown that we get a relationship to complete us. It is the end of that journey. But I told her, look at it as the beginning of a new one. You see, when you get married, and this is where probably going to catch a little bit of heat, so I do apologize to the women in advance. There's many people who would say that women view marriage as the end. I got married, I'm complete, I'm going to have my child, and I'm going to ride off into the sunset. My husband and I, fantastic life. Dog named Sparky, white picket fence, and we're golden, the American dream.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's some men that will look at it, or some people that will look at it and say that I got married. Now it's time to build. What are you building? The family crest, the family legacy, right? Because if you
Mm-hmm.
take it back to traditional roles, men are usually the builder and women are the nurturer, right? The man will build a home, the woman will grow it. It's
Right.
two different perspectives, right? So the reason why I pointed this out to her, I was letting her know that as I got older in age, I wanted someone to spend good times with, big smiles with, and create memories. Everything else is secondary. Right? And that's what I always want. And I think growing up, similar to you, where I didn't have the foundation that maybe was ideal for a productive child. I grew up in a broken home. I didn't know my parents
Mm-hmm.
until I was 5 years old.
Okay.
And I struggled quite a bit because my grandmother did everything that she could for me. And she was very good at masking some of the pain. But once you separate from your grandma, then you realize, wait a minute, why are the other kids' parents, why don't they look as old as my parent? Why are they more mobile? Why are they more active? So that was a demon that I began to challenge myself with. And for you, when you mentioned the success, the happiness, how can we as an individual person find that in your opinion?
Okay. I'm glad you said, in my opinion. You know, I am a Christian, but in the same respect, I'm not someone that Bible thumps somebody. You know what I mean? Okay. And so all I can do is talk about my story, the things that happened to me that I just could not ignore. Now, we're saying a lot of the same stuff. What I found out that I needed, and you can tell me how you feel about this, is that you cannot find anything really. You cannot build a house. You cannot do anything without a foundation. So, I love what you told her. My other thought would be, what is your foundation? Because if you've got a firm foundation, the storms will come, but you will never be knocked off that foundation. And for me, it was when I left the wrestling business. Get this, this is true now. I get stopped walking into a hardware store. A man in overalls taps me. His pointer finger was probably as big as my wrist, and I got good sized wrists, but he pointed and I looked back at him like, what the heck? He said, son, I have a word for you. And I had never heard that term before. Okay, so I'm like, have a word for me? You tap me like that, I might have a few extra words for you, Bella. I mean, you get where I'm coming from. He said, you do not have to go to school for the rest of your life to be a minister. Thank you, sir. And I just said that to be polite. It was like, get out of my face. Over the next 6 months, 7 other times, different people stopped me that I did not know and told me the exact same thing. Son, I have a word for you. That's the way it all started. Too much, so much to the point that Brenda and I are in a church service. And I say, I'd already been married once at that point, and I was hell on earth. I'll be quite honest with you. I didn't deserve anything because I was finding my foundation. I mean, when you don't have a foundation that stabilizes you emotionally and intellectually, then we can be open to listening to anything anybody says and halfway believing it. We've got to have a foundation. In my belief. I said, all right, God, look, got a question. If I'm going to be married, okay. If I'm going to be single the rest of my life, okay. I'd like to know what you're talking about here. All right. Now that I'll tell you what. Now that is some kind of a sweet Christian prayer, isn't it? I mean, when you think of it, it wasn't no, it's sound like something from Beetlejuice, right? Just talking straight up. This woman that was behind me. Now, if she was a brunette, her hair had probably gone from brown or black to silver to white to blue, and it was purple. She looked like Barney the dinosaur. Okay. Tap, tap, tap. Yes, ma'am. Son, I have a word for you. No, no, no more words. I'm tired of this. No more words. Stop it. The answer to your prayer is beside you. Now, Brenda, my wife Brenda, we've been married going on 32 years now. Okay. She was on my right, and some 75-year-old geezer was on my left. Quite honestly, in that comparison, Brenda looked a lot better. But you know what? I was stubborn. I believed if you had a foundation on something, it better be logical. If there's something supernatural about it, there better be some proof. I mean, solid proof. And so I wasn't one of these people that stepped into a church and went, whoa, all that. I walked into a church. I remember after leaving the wrestling business, I walked into a church and I'm thinking, all right, I want to see who's faking here. So for me, it was a foundation. Now I'm sorry to mouth off so much on the other, but it was because I wanted the listeners to understand. Look, I had to be convinced. You get what I mean? And sometimes being convinced, and if something's true and being convinced of it, sometimes God bless us all. Sometimes we got truth staring us in the face, and we don't want to deal with it because it's too hard to deal with. But we don't. We all need a foundation in our life, and I'm glad I've got a foundation in my life that's built on love and trust. I apologize for being so mouthy. Okay,
No, that's perfect because that would lead me to find out how were you able to build that foundation or find out that the foundation that you have is the right one for you.
it was those people tapping me, things being said to me that I had been thinking about, and they were giving me the answers. I mean, it really, I had to be freaked out. I really did. I was stubborn. As a kid, I went to church and my dad would sit in the choir. Now I knew how my dad was, and I'm thinking, who else up there is like him? Probably everybody. They probably go home and slap their kids around. So if you know what I'm talking about here, sometimes it's easier to talk to somebody if they know nothing about a subject than if they know a little bit. Okay. I had been in that church scene, so I was harder to be convinced that church could be a good place or that God, all right. Because when you know, later on, we might get to the point of what led me to this. Do you want me to cover that right now? Okay. All right. I'd been wrestling for several years. I'd become scum of the earth. I was not physically, but emotionally, verbally, everything else. I was abusive. When I would be home, I would be sitting in a recliner. My weed would be wrapped up beside me. I had beer, and then I had a, that was on my right side. On my left side, I had a cooler that had beer, and then I had liquor. I thought it was because of all the physical pain. What I didn't understand was I was hurting emotionally too. I was ready. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation asked me to come up to the sheriff's office. I'd been wrestling, like I said, for several years. And I walked in and they said, Mark, we need you to have a seat. I said, yeah. They said, we've got you on tape. I said, tape about what? Well, I know we know you were buying steroids and we know you were talking to others about steroids. They played me a little bit of a tape. They had me. They said, this is, we're, we hate to do it. You're so young, but this is 20 years. A sheriff, Richard Cantrell, I will never forget that man. Intimidating guy. He walked in. He said, men, had this deep voice. Let me talk to Mark. He said, Mark, I don't care if it's hardly nothing. And probably from what I've heard is very little you can add, but I want you to tell me what you know. I said, well, Miss Sheriff, Mr. Richard, there wasn't a whole lot. There's not a whole lot I can add, but I'll tell you everything. And I didn't turn nobody in because I wasn't that deep into it. Uh, he said, sit, just stay here. I was sitting in the chair and thinking, I'm going to jail for 20 years because of those many. And he said, you don't have to take him to jail. He was truthful. I got it all down in writing. Now, Mark, I'm going to say it in front of these men right here. You ever step into anything, any other kind of mess, I'm going to file charges on top of this 20 years that you owe. I said, yes, sir, Mr. Richard. And right there, I knew I couldn't go back really to the wrestling business. I walked away. I came home. My wife at that time, we'd been married 3 years. She is laying on her stomach in the bedroom, and it sounds like a cackle. Never heard that voice before. I go in and ask her if she's okay. If she's okay, I turn her over, and something pushes me on the floor. Now, I'm going to tell you, if anything happened to her, I'm the culprit. I didn't protect her. In my book, Wrestling with Demons, I'm the bad guy. I'm up front with you. I'm the bad guy. Well, she said, I'm leaving. She did. I mean, next day, I cleaned out the trash can in the bathroom and I found a little stick. Took it to a relative and she said, it's a pregnancy test and it says positive. I said, man. So for months, I tried to get hold of her. Her aunt picked up the phone one day and said, everything's been taken care of. Now, I do not know what that means. You know, we can all guess. The thing is this, anything that she did, and it's bad, I'm the reason she did it. I am the reason. I pray to God nothing happened. But if I look at worst case scenario, I'm a murderer. That humbles you very quickly. And I was in this pothole of life, and I finally looked up and said, all right. I didn't make no sweet prayer. I said, all right. You tell me you're there, show me. Show me. Well, people started popping up. Something weird happened. As soon as I saw somebody and I knew that I'd done them wrong, which was a lot of people, the first thing I had to do, and it was in my heart, I had to do it. I had to go up and hug them and tell them, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I did you wrong. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I bet you I said I'm sorry to 300 or 400 people just in a matter of maybe 3 months. I was apologizing all over the place. And then I said, okay. I also got to apologize to that school that I went to for a year and was a drunk. So I went and saw the dean. I said, look, I'm not coming here to ask to go to school, but I did you wrong. And I explained to her. She started crying. She said, Mark, got something I need to let you know. I said, yes, ma'am. She says, go get your books and go to class. Ma'am, go get your books and go to class. You're going to make something of yourself. I can tell it. I ended that year, the 1 year I'd gone before, I ended with a 1.11 GPA. I was drunk. I was so drunk that I thought biology was beerology. That's how drunk I was. I thought Jack Daniels had signed the Declaration of Independence, not John Hancock. Okay. I mean, I was really messed up. I graduated with a 3.5 GPA. Then all of a sudden, school started calling me. We want you to come here, come here. And I was getting free rides. Come here, come here. Brenda looks at me one day, says, you know what? I've been cleared on something. I says, what? Yeah, I've been cleared. I said, what are you talking about? She said, I'm going to marry a minister. We go, and we go to church a little bit, and that blue haired woman. By the way, I did find out she was Abraham Lincoln's prom date. Okay, but anyway, but anyway, all this stuff started happening, man. All this supernatural. And it's a point where I'm like, okay, I don't have to believe other people's stories. It's happening to me. And that's when I said, okay, I'm working for you now. I didn't even understand really him being my foundation. I just said, I'm working for you now. All right. Brenda and I been married 32 years. We have actually, and I grew up in the state of Georgia. And the time I grew up, there was heavy racism. The Ku Klux Klan was around, things like that. And I look back and I wonder, why wasn't I somebody burning crosses and all that kind of stuff? But my mama was a very good woman, is a very good woman. And what ended up happening was my wife, Brenda, looked at me. She says, Mark, you said we were going to be a foster family years ago. I said, no, I didn't. She said, yes, you did. And I have to believe her because wrestling, I had 30 concussions. So I got to believe her. She could tell me I have two left feet or two right feet. I got to believe her. So anyhow, she she says it's time. And we had heard some horror stories. I said, yeah, it is time. So today I'm sitting here in front of you guys and you listeners, and I'm sorry I'm talking so much. I apologize. But for a boy that is white, Caucasian, my wife is white, Caucasian from the state of Georgia, grew up in some pretty racially divided times. We had three biological children. We have adopted five others, one being a Native American Indian, one being a Caucasian, two being Hispanic, and one being African American. Now, if that doesn't tell you that in your foundation you can be changed, I don't know what to say.
That's a challenge that people will need to look within themselves to understand because around you was the complete opposite in many ways of who you became.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look back in a reflective, because when you're going through it, your perspective may have been different than what it is now because you're looking at it in hindsight. When you
Right.
look back, Mark, what are your thoughts of how far you've come on that journey?
Well, I can look at videos of me in the wrestling ring with Ric Flair, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, all these famous people, right? I remember I do have some memories of throwing the football, a Nerf football with like Ron Simmons and uh, Psycho Sid Vicious, eating hot dogs with the Road Warriors. I remember some of this stuff. Thing is I don't remember as an individual. It's hard for me to put myself in that place now because it seems like really something foreign, and I'm a different person. I'm a totally different identity. Identity. My I did not understand that I was being formed back then. I didn't know it. Now, if I'd had a foundation in my life earlier, I have a feeling I wouldn't have been such a dumb, and made all the bad decisions I made. But Often when we go through the trials, it's hard for us to see beyond that current situation. And that's why I say a foundation is so important because, see, what I learned and what I tell people today, and believe it or not, we get major views, few hundreds or thousands, like on shows where they're either atheist or agnostic. Isn't that crazy? That blew my mind. I got something I read 2 days ago. This reel, you've got 6,000 views. I'm like, what? And God bless them. These podcasters that, you know, when they write me and when I write them, I say, I love you, brother. Love you too. And it's like we've been brothers all our lives. And we talk about love. We're talking about love here. I mean, and for the listeners that don't understand, look, what my brother's doing right here, he's providing you information through different people's lives that maybe you might be going through something, and for the first time in your life tonight you can say, gosh, I'm really not going through this alone. Or maybe there's somebody that does understand what I'm going through. If you were to write this dear brother tonight or tomorrow, whenever, say, I'll listen to this show, I wish you would remember me in your thoughts. I know this man. I'm looking at him. I'm telling you, I know from the bottom of my heart that he would send you his love. You guys have given me and my brother here, you have given us the greatest gift that you could ever give us, and that is your time. And I don't take that lightly. Look, I love to laugh at myself, and I hope I haven't been boring. My wife says I'm boring all the time, but she's had 32 years of me. But anyway, that's beside the point. She also says I look better in the dark. So, what can I say? But anyway, the, the thing is, this is really a labor of love. And if you're sitting tonight in a chair or laying on your bed and you're thinking, what's the purpose? I mean, who cares? You got two people right here that care about you right now. I'll tell you that much.
And that's what's missing, Mark, to your point, right? That we can have, and that's the beautiful thing about podcasts that, or even shows or interviews, whatever it is you want to call it. A lot of people don't understand is that you have people coming together to share their story because there's someone out there who doesn't have the voice to share it. They may not have the courage. They may not have the words to express themselves. I remember the first time I watched an interview and it felt like the person was talking about my life and I didn't even know who they were. But
Mm-hmm.
I was inspired. And that's what we want to do today. Because when you share your story about the foundation and the success and the people around you and the decisions that you had to make, it takes me back to a time where I had a choice. Either I could continue my life knowing it's not going to go anywhere, or I can change it because I can see exactly where I don't want it to go. I may
Mm-hmm.
not know what the future holds, but I know what I don't want my future to be.
And
Right.
that goes right back to acknowledging what we were talking about. The first step in understanding we have to wrestle with our demons is to understand that we have them. It doesn't make you a less of a person, the fact that you're wrestling with your demons. What I learned was this, and that is, man, when you know, I can wrestle with the demon all I want, but what's great is I've got somebody bigger than Andre the Giant, which I've met before, but I've got somebody bigger than Andre in my corner that's saying, Mark, tag me in, and I'll fight this battle for you. Do it, Mark. Come on. Tag me. God, isn't it wonderful to know that you can have a tag team partner like that in life?
Someone there
That's
to support you in every way possible, right?
yes, yes. And so we and I look at the news and part of me gets mad. The other part of me is so sad because several of us, and I want to encourage you, if you don't know him, Tony Lynch is a wonderful guy. And I'll connect you guys, okay? Tony Lynch is wonderful. He's contacted me about us doing a healing through love. And that's what you're doing. And this is something that could sprout nationally. Healing through love. I mean, isn't love the greatest way? Where isn't that the greatest way to be healed? Is the fact that you've got people loving on you, and you don't have to worry that A, you're alone, or B, nobody cares, or C, you're not worth anything, and that's the reason nobody cares.
Imagine realizing that you are not where you need to be in life to have people care about you because you've demonstrated in so many ways that you don't care about yourself.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. And what I love to do is I tell people, I tell them, I guess it's they may still show reruns in Canada, but I tell people God's not Fred Sanford. He doesn't look for junk because he's never made junk. So when you look at that, hey, our answers may not all come exactly how we want them to come or in the time period we want them to come, but still, love will get you through those hard times. It really will. And you you have to know, like the old adage, to have friends, you have to be a friend. Well, if you've got the right foundation in your life, even though things might not be going great, you know there's love. You take that and love others, and you see how that's reciprocated onto your life.
I agree. I agree. And Mark, as we look to close, what's some advice that you want to give to our audience today to make sure that they're setting up the proper foundation so they don't have to suffer in the way that they're maybe currently suffering into the
Sure.
future?
I would say, and I hope this makes sense, is that when you look just upon people, people fail. We all do. In my situation, I had to look at something, as stubborn as I had to look at something that was bigger than me. And I had to be shown that it was bigger than me. I mean, I'm not talking just take things at face value about faith and other things. I'm saying talk to the big man and see what happens. But what I had, but uh, look for your foundation and understand your foundation needs to be love. It needs to be understanding. When you have love and understanding, guess what's going to follow? And that's peace. And goodness gracious, isn't it wonderful to have peace?
That's something that I look for in all of my relationships, whether it's personal, professional, romantic,
Yes.
is peace. Don't be the person to take away my peace.
I had a conversation with my father-in-law. Good gosh, I'm such an idiot. My son-in-law a couple nights ago, and I said, "Son, how many people in on your phone in your contacts? How many people make your life better?" He said, "About half." I said, "Son, then what's keeping you? You know, this our cell phones have this great thing, and it's called delete contact. If someone is making you suffer psychologically, emotionally, whatever the case may be, I'll even go so far as to say this. You can still love them. But there's actually something in the Bible that says something that talks about these people, and that is you wipe the dust from your feet and you go the other direction. There is no reason that any of us should be set up like a statue so people can throw tomatoes at us. We can have some say so over our happiness by the people that we allow into our lives. Look for positivity. If you look for positivity, if you find that foundation, you've got love, understanding, then comes the peace. Let me ask you, doesn't tomorrow seem like a great day to start with?
It's the beginning of something much, much better.
Oh, God. So, listeners, please. Now, my hands are up because I'm excited in this and I just stress in this so much. And that is, look, we all fail. We all have limits. None of us can hold the weight of the world in our hands. Seek something bigger. That may be your answer. Seek something bigger. Hey, yell at the guy and tell him, hey, I need, show me something. Show me. Because I'll tell you what. Now, I'm 5'11", 285 pounds. And some people say I'm intimidating, looking at, face to face. I don't think I am, but my wife says I am. But you know what? I hate to think that I would have to go in tomorrow and just depend on myself. I would hate that. I would hate to think that my welfare, my heart, my emotions, my happiness, all was dependent upon me. Because though I may look stronger than other people, look, some people are stronger than me in different ways. So I'm looking for somebody that can carry all the weight. I'm looking for somebody that can carry all the problems and pat me on the back and send that person my way to say, hey, I love you. And brother, I want to tell you in front of the listeners tonight, I do love you. You are so gracious and you're so wonderful. I love you, brother.